Oh, that is a very jazzy intro, isn't it? Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to the Ask the Accountant Network's MTD show, the Watch Series. And we've got a very special series ahead of you today because we've got a special guest, but more on that in a moment. Let me quickly go through our little intro that we have to talk about. So welcome to MTD Watch, your real-world guide to making tax digital, powered by Ask the Accountant Network. This is a show where you cut through the noise and dive into what MTD really means for your practice, from pricing and preparation to the tools that help firms get ahead. I'm your host, Aaron Patrick, aka the QuickBooks Chap, and joining me today are two of the sharpest mind in MTD strategy. First of all, we have our returning co-host, Suzannah. Suzannah, how are you? The ICB bookkeeper and MD specialist herself. How's it going, Suzannah? You all good?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good, and excited for this episode and pushing things for the bookkeepers here.
Loving that. And she needs no introduction. She's not hashtag Audit Amy this time around. We've got a different Amy. Well, that's what Amy Hancock is. You see, she's hashtag Audit Amy to keep you on that one. Ami Copeland, you need no introduction, but please tell the world who you are, why you're here.
Wow, I am delighted to be here. I'm here really just because you asked me and I can never say no to you. But I am, Ami Copeland. I'm the CEO of the Institute of Certified Bookkeepers. We're the professional membership body of bookkeepers. We certify, supervise, support and connect bookkeepers around the world. And that is something that we love doing.
Amazing. And we'll be deep diving into all of that coming soon. We're going to be grilling you towards the end of this one, so I hope you're prepared for that. In this series, we'll be unpacking the true cost of MTD readiness, exposing the common pitfalls, and grilling the software vendors on what's working, and even to dive into what isn't. We're broadcasting live across LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram, and this episode will be available on demand on all major podcasting platforms. Be sure to follow and subscribe, and if you don't miss a moment of the new series, and if you're watching live, drop your questions and curveballs in the chat, just like Mahu has. So good afternoon, everyone from cloudy London. I've got a cloudy Derby. What's the weather check over there, people?
I'm in cloudy London. It's a bit grim.
It's a bit cloudy here as well.
Oh, there we are. Well, Tim can give us a better one, hopefully. So Tim also says, afternoon, whoever is booking guests for the show is doing a cracking job. I'll be producer Lizzie for you. Now we just need to get Suzannah hashtag MTD Queen in the sea. So we did a poll last week, didn't we, of what your hashtag should be, and MTD Queen was a resounding success. So yes,
was it?
Yeah, that's your new.
I'm too scared to. I can't see the results unless I vote for something myself. So I don't know.
Well, vote and you'll see, and you can be involved. Also, Kirsty St. John's here. Hi, hello there. And who's talking too much? Says Tim. Exactly. Sue Green also says hello. Tim, we need a better weather forecast for us, please. So if you can let us know how lovely and warm and beautiful Guernsey is, that'd be great. And I don't know if you saw, Guernsey made the news as well. So a plane leaving Manchester to Guernsey has been the most followed plane of all time. So why? No one knows, but there we are. Mahu also says, since Ami Copeland is leading and participating in almost all talks about MTD It, I recommend to give her the hashtag MTD It Advocate or MTD It Specialist. Which one are you going for, Amy?
I just don't think it looks very nice, does it? Those letters all together, MTD It. I don't like it.
Oh, yeah. Is that why they changed it, actually? I've never wondered why they changed it. Is that what it is?
I thought there was going to be an F in there. I thought it was going to be for income tax. And it was going to be MTD Fit.
Yeah.
Right. But
it's better than MTD ITSA. That was even worse.
Yeah. So we're going in the right direction. We've not found it yet. Is that what we're saying? That's our news for today.
Yeah. We're working on the hashtag.
Tim also says the flight had a squirrel on, maybe. Oh, that could be it. We could be back to Squirrelgate. That could be the reason that everyone was watching.
Squirrels in Guernsey. Insane.
Yeah. We're going to start off the show, as we always do, with a bit of feedback from the last show. Now, they've ticked feedback, but I'm not sure if this is feedback or... Well, to be fair, they've ticked both feedback and questions. So I think the person who sent this in was confused themselves, which is fair enough. That's on us. We've obviously not made the form very... easy to use, but if you've got any feedback or if you want to ask any questions, don't forget to use the section down below. Get yourself involved in the show, or if you're live, you can obviously talk like Tim and everyone else is over there. But if you're not listening to us live, then use the feedback form to get your questions or feedback in. So this is from Sarah. So Sarah L says, you've talked a lot about quarterly submissions, but how do you see HMRC handling errors or adjustments? For example, if someone reports on a cash basis 1 quarter and later realize they need to correct income and expenses, will there be a formal amendment process, or will it all roll forward to the year-end submission? Also, do you think this will increase the risk of penalties for honest mistakes, says Sarah L. Suzannah, do you want to have a attempt at that one? Go for that one.
When I looked at the information that they were putting out there, whether or not you were able to submit on a cash basis or it had to be accruals basis, or how that was going to relate, the what they said was you could choose either, but you had to be consistent. Now that's the same anyway with doing the accounts or doing the bookkeeping, but you are able to change it. So I think as long as you're not changing backwards and forwards, I would imagine that if you suddenly decided, well, we've been doing it on cash basis, we are now going to need to move to accrual basis or vice versa, I would imagine you can change it at that point. And because the submissions are cumulative, I would imagine that it will correct, but who knows? At the moment, we're not there yet. So it's going to be one of these things we're going to find out. But they've also said with regard to errors and omissions and stuff that they're going to go easy on people as long as they're not kind of, as long as people are trying to do it properly and trying to keep everything up to date and not just filing 3 blank quarterly returns and then a 4th one which contains everything, which is cheating and not what they're trying to get us to do in the process. I think as long as people are doing it as best they can, it will be the same. For example, how we do it with VAT. Obviously, if there's an enormous error, which is going to be unlikely, I would think, for sole traders, because you're not dealing with enormous sums most of the time. So I don't think we need to be too concerned as long as we're doing the best we can, and then making sure at year end that everything is, everything's reconciled, everything's tied up.
Yeah, I would think exactly right. And I think they've definitely brought on penalties and stuff for not submission, like you've already said. That's already been put out there, hasn't it? But there's no news at the moment from HMRC about penalties for anything else. Betting man and putting a tinfoil hat on, I don't expect that to happen. Maybe in the future there'll be something there, but for now it is more of a case of they just want to make sure the systems are working, make sure people can get them submitted, make sure else. I'd be interested to see how
software. We're already doing all our checks. We're already doing that as part of our processes anyway. Exactly. So I don't think we need to worry too much. Perhaps for people who are doing their own bookkeeping, that's more of a concern. But again, I think there will be leeway.
It'll be interesting how software approaches it, though, because if you think about it now, and I'm just speaking from the QuickBooks point of view because that's the one I know more than anything else. They have the exceptions report, for example. Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know, if you submit a return, a VAT return, and then you make an adjustment on a next VAT return, you get this really fancy exception report column. Yeah. And the idea then is you can then go through that exception report and get confidence in it, right? Like, is that right? Or wrong.
And I think most softwares do that. I know Xero has late entries or something similar, and I think they all do it to a degree. So you can look at that before you file and go, oh yeah, that one wasn't on the last quarter and should have been, but that's because we were still chasing the invoice for that or whatever, or we spotted that after. Exactly. And now it's there, and as it's cumulative, it will now be included.
Yeah, and it would just be interesting to see if that's the approach that software are going to go. Are they going to give us that exception report later down the line or something like that? Because what this will be really useful for, because what I think will be useful for is that scenario where the client maybe attempted quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, and then they got a little bit nervous. Then they've asked for an accountant / bookkeeper to come and help them. Then then you've come in and you've spotted they've done this wrong or that wrong or whatever it's going to be. Just having that little confidence of going, right, here's the adjustments I made to previous periods for you, just so you know, or because maybe you got to charge them or whatever, whatever the reason's going to be. And I feel like that'll be really useful.
It shows your value. It shows the value. Exactly. These are the things you missed because you didn't know you had to reconcile the bank, and you therefore missed all these transactions or something. You didn't check it against the statement, and the bank feed had missed a couple of transactions or something like that. and this is what I've adjusted for you. And then they're like, oh, thank goodness we've got somebody looking at it who knows what they're doing. That's
exactly
what they'll think.
Exactly. Amy, anything you want to add to Sarah's question at all before we move on?
Well, just like Suzannah said, it's cumulative, isn't it? So when you're submitting your second quarter return, you're actually submitting your first and second quarter. And then when you get to the third, it's first, second, third. So that's how they'll know what you've changed, basically.
And we'll come on to it later, but hopefully, HMRC are not just going to start adding these penalties willy-nilly. There'll be some consultation. They'll be talking to people like yourself and stuff like that. So yeah, hopefully if they do start bringing penalties later down the line, then we'll be forewarned and they'll be reasonable. Okay, so that's the feedback from the show. Again, if you've got some feedback for us, use that link down below, get it over to us, and we'll answer at the start of next week's show. Next bit of topic is our news section. Now, we're not going to spend long on this, but it was just interesting that this came into fruition. And this is HMRC have launched an MTD support for tax agents. So they've gone and released a whole, it's a strange one. It's a form, an online form that you have to complete as a tax agent. So as long as you've got yourself an agent services account, you can go to this link. We'll try and get producer Lizzie to put the link out somewhere so that people can find it. But the idea is you can go into this link, fill out the form, basically explain to HMRC how your firm is prepared. Is it way behind on MTD? Is it actually to the forefront of it and everything else? And then HMRC will basically use that form submission to provide additional support for you. So they're talking about things like a Teams call, help you kind of get your clients set up correctly, items like that. So it's nice that HMRC have given us this extra bit of support. I definitely wasn't expecting it. So well happy that that's there. Strange way of doing it. And if I'm being really cynical, and I don't mean to make this negative, but it's just me being cynical, it seems like this support's quite hidden away with it being this online support form that you have to already have an ASA account for, etc., etc. There'll be reasons and they'll have their explanations why. But if I researching it for this webinar, I'd have no idea about this particular support area that's there. So yeah, we'll make sure the link's out there so people can find it. But thoughts? Anyone who wants to go first on that one?
Definitely fill in the form and sign up for it. I would say
free support, right?
Yeah. Once you found the form, fill it in and get that support. I think there's already been quite a lot of good support for beta testers, but it's just, are you getting this? Do you have clients and software that will help you get into the beta testing? But yeah, definitely take all the help you can get, I'd say.
Yeah,
100%. Are you going to be filling in the form, Suzannah?
Yeah, I definitely will have a look at it and fill it in. I think, like Amy says, I think just having those contacts that we can reach out to if there are issues, I think having that kind of pathway in place is really valuable.
Especially if you can get a Teams call. We do a Teams call now with all of our new products when they sign up, kind of onboard them. And it's so good because then you can give people individual support on what they need to know about, because not everybody is the same, starting point.
Yeah, that's a good way of doing it, isn't it? Good way. Apparently, they're going to use the form to basically triage the requirement and everything else. And people with most clients will get to the top of the list, and then it can trickle down from there. So, interesting way of doing it. Interesting way. But yeah, so we'll make sure that link gets out there. We can go from there. Awesome. Right, let's go to the actual part of the show that everyone's excited for. We have the wonderful Amy here. Amy, let's start off with some questions, and the grilling session can continue or commence. Let's talk about ICB itself. So how has ICB been preparing its members for MTD? Because I feel like you're in quite a unique position where I think MTD is going to affect a lot of your members, whereas I would have thought for a lot of the other professional bodies, there'll be a much smaller percentage. I think you're in a position where there's going to be quite a lot that's going to be involved. So how have you been preparing your members and kind of going through from there? What sort of strategy have you used so far?
What sort of strategy? Well, we have been just doing everything, going to every meeting that HMRC will invite us to. So we're on various working groups with HMRC.
Excellent.
and just trying to filter that information through. And one of the main things we did early on, we sent Jackie Mount to campaign to enable this multi-agent access so that you can have an accountant, say, and a bookkeeper taking part in Making Tax Digital for income tax, because these quarterly submissions, we just saw straight away that is the job of a bookkeeper. That was really key for us. And so being in those meetings and in those conversations, I think is really important. And then just being able to sort of trickle that down to our members as well. So we've got MTD information and guidance on the website. We've done various events. One of my favorite of which was with Lorraine and Laura talking about how bookkeepers and accountants can work better together, because we see this as a huge opportunity for that relationship to really flourish. But also we've got an MTD software guide coming out. I think that's beginning September, so that must be next week. It's already September. I can't believe it. So we've got a software guide coming out. We've got a webinar discussing what kind of software you can use, because that's an interesting piece as well, particularly if you're a bookkeeper perhaps who's not doing the self-assessment tax, or if you're looking for something that can do both parts all in one, or you're working with accountants or other agents that might be using different software for a different part of the jigsaw. So there's quite a lot to be thinking about. And of course, also bridging software is totally okay. And, you know, unfortunately, there are still some clients that are on their paper records and Excel spreadsheets. So how do you support these professionals? So there's the kind of the software piece. I've been at every event that will have me talking about Making Tax Digital. And I've been saying really it should be completely renamed Making Bookkeeping Mandatory, and talking about why bookkeeping is so important and why this is kind of revolutionary for us. But also we've got a tax update coming up at the end of September as well with the amazing Amy Chin. So she's going to be talking about all the latest updates with Making Tax Digital. And I think one of the tricky things is, you know, when it comes down to it, I think what bookkeepers really want to know is, how do I physically get my clients signed up to this? And we did do a webinar with HMRC, and the questions were sort of coming through thick and fast. And it was like, no, wait a second, go back a step. Sorry, how do I actually get them here to here? And they had these like screenshots. And I was like, oh, wow, we can't be using screenshots, guys. And I think it's because they keep changing it on a daily basis. So in December, we've also got something exciting called MTD Day, which our members and other bookkeepers are welcome to attend. And we're basically going to get, live demos and have people actually doing it live on the day, and actually sort of trying to do some quarterly updates, trying to sign up some clients as well. Because I think bookkeepers really, that's, you know, this is business as usual, really, for bookkeepers. Bookkeepers are already doing what this kind of new mandation requires in terms of the actual job. But I think it's that sort of actual process of making sure you've signed everyone up and you haven't missed anybody. And so we really want to go practical with it and actual, you know, get our hands dirty with it. Also, just to mention, we have the Bookkeepers Summit coming up on the 17th and later that week of November. And I think we've got 4 sessions on Making Tax Digital, from sort of price it to the sort of HMRC take. And we've got Craig Ogilvie coming back, and he is the guy, isn't he, from HMRC, talking about MTD. And people loved him last time, so that went down very well. But yeah, like I say, we're just trying to give everyone lots of information, but being sort of recognizing that not everybody is terribly interested necessarily in landlords and sole traders. So, you know, each to their own. And at ICB, we support bookkeepers who have all sorts of different businesses, some of whom are sole traders themselves, some of whom would never touch a sole trader. So it's just about making sure that everyone's informed. And even if you don't do self-assessment tax, trying to get that message out there about what your role could be in Making Tax Digital.
I love that. And you mentioned there about software, because, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but I assume from ICB point of view, you can't go, this is a software that all our members should be using because of X, Y, Z, right? You've got to be quite impartial, right? And you've got to support it there. But what I recognize that you did with the upcoming Lucre Awards and how that's coming together is, you don't just have software that's kind of pigeonholed into certain area. And I forget what you've called it now, but you've got this new kind of award that they can get, where it's basically the software that's not client focusing, it's for the practice, right? It's what the practice needs to be able to do their day-to-day.
What did we call it in the end? We went around for weeks about what we should call this. Is it,
and I can't remember what it's called.
Tool? I can't remember. It's really
I looked this up the other day and I've forgotten now as well.
If anyone in the chat knows, do let us know and do keep us honest. But it's really important that you're kind of emphasizing that bit as well, because I think that's the bit where I've seen, especially kind of on socials and talking to people at events and stuff, it's that bit that not neglecting, but that's the bit that people aren't really thinking about. I feel like everyone's already decided if they're going to go with QuickBooks or Xero or Sage or Free Agent, or they're going to have a mixture, right? But I feel like emphasizing on that other piece of software, you know, how are you going to get your engagement letters out? How are you going to onboard your clients in an efficient manner? All that sort of stuff. That's really important as well, isn't it? And the fact that you guys are kind of, you've even created a whole category for that one, you know, that must be a thing. Is that going to be part of MTD Day as well, kind of showing how to do that sort of stuff?
Thanks, Tim. The Bookkeeper Toolkit app. It's almost like there's one extra word in there that I need. Yeah, it's that sort of meta level, isn't it? What do bookkeepers actually use to look after themselves? And what's that thing that they always say about the cobbler's shoes or whatever, or the kids of the cobbler? You know, sometimes you don't think about yourself enough, do you? Because bookkeepers are all about helping other businesses, and sometimes you just got to say, no, what about me? Let me think about my business and look after myself for once. I mean, Suzannah, I'd love to know what kind of toolkit you've got up your sleeve.
Well, you need a good practice management software, because that's going to be holding all of your sort of client information and helping you to firstly segment your clients and then communicate with them, and then put your workflows in for each client and the deadlines and stuff. So that's really important. So for me, I use Engager. You need pricing software as well. So other people, am I meant to be saying the actual tools I'm using? Yeah. Is that okay? Without, obviously, others are available. So I don't use Engager for pricing, but I use Go Proposal for that and for the letters of engagement for Oversuite. So you need something to help you with that, because obviously there's going to be your pricing is going to need to change, and your schedule of services and stuff, that's all going to need to be included, so it's very clear what you are doing, where your responsibilities are and where the client's responsibilities are, particularly around MTD and submissions. And then I've got things like Xenon Connect, which is helping me with error checking, which is going to help, because you need to be as efficient as you can, because there's going to be all this extra work or extra pressure at certain points for the submissions. So I'm using Xenon to help me error check. And I'm also using that for clients who want to do their own bookkeeping but want me to check it, because that's helping identify errors that they may have made. And it also helps with keeping track of volume of transactions and stuff like that as well, which obviously you need to build that into your pricing. And that's not necessarily an MTD thing, but yeah, so that's my basic toolkit, as well as the accounting software. I've probably missed something obvious, but those are the ones that came to mind that I need, that I can't now. I need those in my practice. And then things like data capture, for receipt capture software. If you're doing the bookkeeping, again, you need something like that, because you're going to need those receipts in on a regular basis, not annually in a shoebox. You know, it's kind of basic stuff, really. Again, that bookkeepers have already been doing for a long time anyway. Maybe not so much for the smaller sole trader clients, but we're just rolling out that process now to those clients who are going to be brought into MTD. And actually, it makes you roll it out really to pretty much everyone, because it's just more efficient.
Definitely. And Amy, from ICB's point of view and as a professional body, because Suzannah's just mentioned some amazing pieces of software there, and on our platform we can mention what we want, we you know, what we're using. There's no rules or regulations against that. But how do you find that because it must be a line for you, right, where you find this amazing tool that you've got some of your members screaming about how amazing it's you know, changed the way that they're doing their data extraction or whatever it's going to be, right? How do you bridge that line of, well, we want to talk about it, we want to tell our members, of course we do, we want to support them as best we can, but we need to be impartial, and we've got to be careful on that, because I feel like for QuickBooks, Xero and all those sort of things, they do enough of their own stuff that people are going to pick one of those flags and they're going to go with it. But it's the other ones that I think they don't get enough attention, right? And that's where a lot of your members kind of rely on ICB to put them in the right direction of this piece of software they may never even heard of before, right? Or this solution that may never even come across. How do you bridge that gap? How do you get get your members interested and excited about it without causing you issues later down the line of over pushing one or the other?
Well, you say we rely, our members rely on us, but I think oftentimes it's the other way around. So we're actually finding out from our members what they think is the good software. I think Tim's just mentioned several in the chat there. So really, our job is kind of being that sort of platform where we're taking some of this information from some of our members who are super hot on software and then filtering that out, disseminating that out through the rest of the membership. And actually, we've got an accreditation scheme that we actually get a member to facilitate, so they actually review the software. And we sort of wait till there's a critical mass, till we're hearing, multiple voices saying this is good software. Sometimes it comes out of the Luca Awards process as well, because we sort of have an open system where members can nominate pieces of software. And then we actually get a member to do a full review. So we have various criteria. Obviously, you've got to have all your compliance right, and you've got to have good data security, etc. But when they get through that, then it's really up to the bookkeeper to say to us, well, this is a really good piece of software. And actually, we do reject different tools because what we're looking for is software that's good for bookkeepers and helps bookkeepers do their jobs right. And sometimes, they come back and they say, well, this is a great tool for maybe a sole trader to do their own stuff, but it's not good enough for a bookkeeper, basically. And what's really nice is that sometimes our bookkeepers are, detailed people. So they come back and they give like pages of, feedback to these software companies, which is a massive service to the software company. And so often the software company goes, my gosh, yeah, we're going to change absolutely everything the bookkeeper said, down to positioning of buttons, the sort of taxonomy. So it's a lovely process whereby bookkeepers and software companies are working together, because I think what frustrates bookkeepers the most is when the software companies don't listen. And I think sometimes until they know, you don't know what you don't know until they meet bookkeepers and they talk to bookkeepers about how they use the software. Sometimes they don't understand how valuable the bookkeeper's voice is. And as we all know, the bookkeepers are the ones that are they're using the software day in, day out, talking to the clients and really kind of using the software to its best. So, that's kind of, for us, it's all about just raising that awareness really with software companies and saying, hey, the bookkeeper is your most useful customer.
I think that's where the ICB summit and events like that become really useful, isn't it? Because most of the time it's not just seeing the vendors there or seeing them on stage or however you interact with them. Most of the time it's that networking, isn't it? Of you bump into someone who, just getting some food with them or whatever. And then you can ask that question about how are you pricing your client or whatever it's going to be. And it's normally those little interactions, isn't it, that are so powerful. And you get so much benefit from those sort of interactions, don't you?
Yeah, you do. I'm thinking we've got Accountex North coming up, haven't we, next month? So that's super exciting. That will tide us over until we get to the Bookkeepers Summit, because the Bookkeepers Summit, you don't go anywhere, I don't think, where you're like, oh my gosh, it's all bookkeepers and they're talking to me as a bookkeeper. And this is all about me and my career. We're getting there. I think events really are coming, are sort of figuring it out. But we still, every year, we have a sort of show guide for the Bookkeepers Summit. And every year there will be at least one company, one vendor that they've given us some blurb and it's all about accountants. It doesn't even mention bookkeepers. I think
such a basic thing.
Such a basic thing. It's like they're distinct user groups. I know there's a sort of hybrid, and maybe MTD IT will kind of accelerate that a little bit. But, speak to the bookkeeper, because the bookkeeper's special.
Speaking of accountants and bookkeepers, in fact, no, we'll save that one. Let's keep on the bookkeeping theme for now. So you mentioned it already. You said about MTD. You're real believer in all these talks you're doing and everything else of it empowering the bookkeepers, aren't you? Do you want to talk a little bit more why? Like what is it do you think that MTD itself is going to just give us?
Well, I think the important thing to recognize about MTD IT is that bookkeepers are already doing this work. This doesn't represent a change in the work that bookkeepers are going to have to do. because bookkeepers are already there supporting clients day in, day out. You're working on real-time data, you're maintaining accurate records. All of that is kind of business as usual for bookkeepers. What I think making tax digital IT changes is recognition for that. So it's actually creating this legal imperative for businesses to have digital bookkeeping.
Yeah.
So really, ultimately, we have got parity with accountants now. It's not just the end of year tax return that is legally required, it's digital bookkeeping every day of the year. And really, I think if you're a good bookkeeper who's got good systems in place, you know how to scale your business, this is effectively the government giving you your career on a plate and saying, this is your future. You know, this is, you know, there are enough clients to go around now for everybody. And now we've got that sort of visibility of the vital role that bookkeepers play. I think it is just a once in a lifetime opportunity for bookkeepers.
Amazing. And I know, like, the one thing we're trying to do with our clients is trying to take the negativity out of it and trying to just be on that positive train, right? Like, why is this actually a good thing? Well, you know, finally you get to have your bookkeeping in a digital format for once. And even little things like, I was talking to a client the other day who hadn't even considered that they had any debtors at this point in time. Like, we were just going that question of, oh, we've noticed there's these debtors here and we assume they're all bad debts. And as soon as we mentioned there was these debtors, they were confused. They're like, what do you mean we have these debtors? And, you know, just that realization that actually, if they had some good bookkeeping, like you're saying there, and they had some good systems in place, they would have known about these debtors a long time ago and had to do something about it, isn't it? So I feel like that's where MTD, that positivity comes from, isn't it? Suzanne, you had a follow-up question you wanted to ask, didn't you, about this, didn't you, about the change and everything? So do you want to bring that one in now?
Well, it was just a general one, really, about what do you see changing for bookkeepers with MTD for income tax? Because as we've already discussed, a lot of it we're already doing, but there is an opportunity there, and there are also some things that we are going to have to do for different clients. And what do you think the overall effect for bookkeepers is likely to be? That's a bit vague.
Well, I don't want to underestimate the fact that there is new work to be done. There is, isn't there? And even if you're doing that already for your clients, and you've got clients whose VAT you are doing, this still represents a change. So there's that whole kind of onboarding, and you know, just making sure you've got the right clients in the right places. And you know, that's why we've been advocating for bookkeepers to sign up to the beta as much as they possibly can, even if it is just for your own books, if you're a sole trader, because then you know what you've got ahead of you, really. You know what the issues are, and we know that not all the software is working as it should be. And then you've got, you know, complex clients who've got multiple sources of income. So if you're a landlord and you're a sole trader, or you've got multiple trades, you're going to have to be doing separate updates. So there is that sort of conversation piece with clients as well, isn't there? But that's what bookkeepers are really good at. And I think definitely, when I hear the accountants discussing this, and really we're talking about accountants who are once a year accountants, the reason they're struggling is they are just, their practices are not set up to cope with this. So you are definitely at an advantage if you've already got if you're already doing bookkeeping for your clients, and of course if you've got VAT as well. But there is still work to be done, and then of course you've got to figure out what your pricing is going to be, because I think a lot of professionals, you're very kind, and you see the books, you know how these business owners struggle getting paid, and so I think there's so often bookkeepers and accountants feel this pressure to not charge for their services, which is so frustrating, because actually there's a legal imperative to do this. If businesses don't get this right, they're going to be fined. So you've got this kind of force behind you, this kind of regulatory kind of weight, which should enable you to actually charge what you're worth. So yes, of course, I suppose you've got to figure out your kind of process. Can you bundle this into your kind of VAT quarterly process? And how do you, and I don't mean bundle the price in. No. Price accordingly, but how do you get that? How do you get it to work? And also, if you are considering maybe for the first time, or kind of reinforcing relationships you already have with accountants, how are you going to make that work? Because that's a source of frustration, isn't it? I mean, it's not like you body up with a great
opportunity as well.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a huge opportunity, because there are going to be accountants who are not going to have the capacity to do the bookkeeping for those annual clients who the ones that aren't VAT registered, perhaps, who probably currently do their own, perhaps, and don't want to do their own. If there's this extra scary quarterly filing, or maybe they don't use software, and at the moment it's just being done on a spreadsheet and whatever, and so there's an opportunity there for accountants to work with bookkeepers and for that work to be done, and because it's extra work, there is extra work out there. There's going to be, and like accidental landlords who probably do their own. At the moment, they probably do their own self-assessment as well, some of them, but then they're going to lack that confidence when it comes to choosing and using software, and then because you're filing digitally, it adds a whole sort of extra level of what if I do it wrong? Fear, So I think people are going to want that reassurance, either of having a bookkeeper doing it for them, or at least a bookkeeper checking it for them. So yes, I think I agree with you. I think there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Yeah. And just how do you kind of prepare for that demand? So if there is going to be a surge in demand, even if, the numbers aren't, ultimately 4 million sole traders, right? They're not all going to be knocking on your door at the same time, hopefully. But how do you prepare for that demand, and how do you figure out where you want to position your practice? You may just decide, I just want the VAT registered people who are the biggest, biggest turnover, or no, I really want to go with, nail artists in Surrey. You can go super niche.
I think that's where there's going to be the surge of demand. I think is going to be more for the next threshold, the 30k threshold, which is coming in April 2027. I think that's where we'll see a real spike in people wanting an agent of some description to help them where they've currently done their own. I mean, I'm seeing it already coming through. I've had a lot of inquiries coming through from people who have said, "Oh, I've always done it myself, but now I feel like I need some extra support, or I want, I don't know how to use software or whatever." And I think so that's now, and I think that's only going to grow.
Yeah. And that impact that you could potentially have, all these people. I mean, we all know multiple people I know in my family who are all just struggling to just do this. They leave it to the last minute and they struggle to do it themselves, and they don't know if they've done it right. And
I just had someone the other week saying it is such a relief being able to just hand this over to you. I've always done it myself. It's taken me hours. I've had to scrabble around getting everything together for the year. Now I can hand it over to you, and now you're going to help me set it all up where we're doing it and keeping on top of it throughout the year, so I haven't got that horrible feeling at the end of the year where I know I've got to spend a whole weekend going through everything and putting it all together and putting it in a folder or putting it onto a spreadsheet. They haven't got that anymore, and they there's so many benefits to MTD. I know that there's negatives as well, and I know people are skeptical as to what HMRC's overall motives are, but I think there are positives that we can talk about with our clients, and I think overall it's a positive.
I love that point you make there, Amy, about I've not really thought about it before, because I keep hearing again from the network and everything else about accountants who are once a year accountant, like you mentioned there. They're just not set up for it, and their whole point is, well, we just won't deal with MTD. If it's an MTD client, we're just gonna tell them to find someone else, right? But I love that idea that actually partnering up with a ICB bookkeeping member, that could be a really good way for everyone to win from this, right? Like, you still maintain that annual set of accounts, but they're actually going to be in a much better quality. They're gonna, you're gonna have a much better relationship with that particular client, because you're going to be able to do it quicker for them, and it won't be left to the last minute, right? Because in theory, the quarters have already been done, ready to go. So I like that approach. Is that how you've kind of been telling your members that's why there's an opportunity out there? And is that what you've been on stage telling people for?
I have been saying a lot. I thought it would catch on perhaps more than it has, but to make MTD work, you've got to work like a bookkeeper or with a bookkeeper. And really, this is a message for these once-a-year accountants who are just like, I'm going to pack it in, I'm going to retire. You don't need to retire. Just lean on bookkeepers. You know, bookkeepers are tech savvy. They're really good at helping clients adopt new technology, and that's one of the biggest challenges here. They're really good at data and details. So real-time information is kind of bread and butter for them. And then when you've got clients who've got quarterly figures, then you can bundle on your advisory, do it multiple times a year and make more money from it. But I think a lot of these once-a-year accountants are thinking, it's already a struggle. My client already struggles to pay me this amount of money. And again, this kind of like this feeling like you owe it to your clients to sort of discount your services or help them without charging. Even Rebecca Bennyworth is saying, well, I might just do the bookkeeping for free for a year to get my clients to join the public beta. Bookkeeping is really valuable. And this is the moment where, we've got the kind of external proof. There's a legal imperative to do digital bookkeeping. So it's never been more valuable. So I'm hoping really that I think in the UK, we have really underpriced accounting services. It's not the same in America. It's not the same in Australia. And we've got members in those areas. I think this is hopefully a kind of turning point that, in which bookkeepers can finally charge what they're worth and businesses understand their value. And like you say, Suzanne, it's not just, sleeping better at night. It's actually understanding your books. And most businesses, frankly, don't have a clue because they're too busy doing something else.
Exactly.
And I imagine your members are going to be the same as other members, where we don't want to talk about it, but a lot of what we're doing is about making sure that we can sell our practice at some point, right? It's that end goal, isn't it? It's that what are we doing? We're trying to make our practice as valuable as we possibly can. And these end of year accountants or once a year accountants, just say, who are just walking away from it, they're not going to be able to sell it at a very good rate if that's what they're going to do, right? Like they've worked all that hard work, they put all that effort into, and it almost feels like if they don't do something, if they don't try and embrace it, they don't. And I love that idea of working with a local bookkeeper to help them kind of get that bit. It almost feels like their legacy is just going to be kind of eroded overnight if they're not careful, right?
It's very true. I've also heard that bookkeeping practices are more valued by investors and people who are buying up practices. You could ask Johan, and rather than these once a year tax practices, because the clients just are not in this kind of process and they're not as engaged, they're not as kind of open to getting some of this kind of more high value kind of advice.
Without those regular touch points, you haven't got the strong relationship with the clients as well that makes the client stay. If you're just providing a once a year service, they haven't got that sort of that stickiness to wanting to work with you long term necessarily. So I think that's a fact too.
It's just too late to find out how your business is doing. It's just not going to work. And I think that's
because
one of the
return 9 months after. Sorry.
No, I totally agree. And I think even the tax forecasts from HMRC, love them or hate them, I think clients are going to enjoy them, and you probably are going to need a bookkeeper or someone to kind of pick up the pieces and say, well, you've got a seasonal business and that's probably not accurate, but this is what is. Exactly. I think we can all do with a bit of better planning probably in our businesses. So I think it is going to be great. If we are able to charge for this kind of additional work, if we feel confident in doing that.
I love that. And ICB being forefront by looks of it of MTD, and the fact that you've MTD Day and you've got and you've been on.
Try to rebrand it.
I feel like every single event out there, you've been on a stage at some point talking at some point about MTD. Does that mean you're also looking to change the qualification and your training and everything else to be in line with it? Is that on the cards as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did, when MTD for VAT came in, it requires an adjustment to the actual exams and the qualifications. And so the same is true for MTD income tax. As far as we're concerned, though, this is not tax. This is not a tax job. This is a bookkeeping job. Okay. So just to make it really clear, As far as we're concerned, you don't have to be tax trained. So if you're running a practice, you can get your non-tax trained professionals to do this. If you're running your own practice, you would, as far as ICB is concerned, need to be level 3 qualified, because then as a full member, you can have a practice. But technically, you're doing VAT, you're doing all the kind of records that you would need, even at level 2 level. So we're not foreseeing huge changes here. It just requires a bit of rewriting of all the exams.
This is just for the quarterly returns we're talking about, aren't we?
Yeah, good clarification.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, we're doing, that is just, the quarterly returns are just bookkeeping. They are just a summary of income and expenses for that quarter. They don't even have to include any accounting adjustments for things like depreciation or capital allowances or anything like that. So it is just the very sort of simple bookkeeping for those quarterly returns. It's only when the final return that, that's when you're doing an actual self-assessment and you need that extra level 4 qualification. Yeah, but certainly, so for bookkeepers, the bookkeepers without level 4, they shouldn't be discounting doing the quarterly returns, and even if there is a separate accountant who does the year end, and that accountant will probably be very grateful for having one less thing off their list, because otherwise they've got to check all your work every quarter before they put their name to that quarterly return.
So what I'm hearing then, if you're a growing firm and you're looking to make the most of MTD, then ICB bookkeepers, that's what you want to be employing. Is that what you're saying?
100%. Yes. You can employ, you can train, you can outsource to, you can co-firm with, there's so many different ways you can work with a bookkeeper. You can, everyone loves a bit of homegrown talent. So if you want to teach them your ways, start them off. They can do courses with us. You can do apprenticeships. We also have an exemption route for people doing T-levels. T-levels are great, by the way. I think they're a really cool idea. But there's an ICB apprenticeship route, the same way that there's a qualification route. But all of our, we actually are, I think, sometimes unique in the kind of professional body space, in that you don't have to be like an approved or recognized firm. You can just train your bookkeepers in-house, and they can take our exams and pass. And what I hear time and time again is accounting firms saying, I actually need to recognize my bookkeepers because they are actually really special, and I want them to stay as bookkeepers and not to keep trying to become a accountant or leave my firm. And I think that's when professional qualifications come in handy, because you can say, you can become a certified bookkeeper through us, and we value that role in our business. It's really important. If you're only ever certifying people as an accountant, you're putting the wrong message out there. So, the value of having that bookkeeping in-house is massive. So, make sure that your bookkeepers know that you appreciate them. Just like Tim Chilston here in the chat does. He's got a trainee scheme where he trains people to do their ICB payroll or their ICB bookkeeping or their tax. And that's how you attract, number one, bookkeepers who like bookkeeping and want to do bookkeeping. If you're always attracting accounting technicians who are on their way to being a chartered accountant, they're not going to stay in the bookkeeping, and they're not going to be very good at it, probably. So train bookkeepers to do bookkeeping and hire bookkeepers to do bookkeeping, or outsource to a great bookkeeping firm, and then it's all done for you. But it's, I think this is the moment in history where people are finally recognizing that, we started off this profession with bookkeeping, and it's the future. So bookkeeping is massively important. It's the absolute foundation. It enables those client conversations that accountants can use to have higher value services. But it is the absolute foundation, and it's really critical to get it right. So, put crap in, get crap out.
Sound advice. Suzannah, you had one other question about LOEs, and do you want to raise it?
Yes. So obviously ICB have done lots to support us, to support the members in helping us learn about MTD and thinking through processes and everything like that. And of course, especially the supporting agent function that we've now got. Are there plans to provide sort of more advice and a template around letters of engagement to, around MTD, specifically perhaps where there are two agents, or and just MTD in general, and just so that it's very clear in our letters of engagement whose responsibility is what, and what
Yes.
what you're agreeing to do and when, and deadlines and everything like that.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because that sort of compliance aspect is really important. So
And
yes,
I think there's confusion at the moment about needing, I don't think we need client sign off to submit the MTD quarters. So again, I feel that I will personally be asking for client sign off. Is that something that's going to be built into a letter of engagement, or how are you guys planning on supporting us with those?
So what we are going to do is produce some sections that you could add into your letter of engagement. You don't necessarily need to have a whole new letter of engagement, but ultimately, yes, you need to cover the scope, particularly if you're kind of handing over to another agency. You need to be clear about what part of the jigsaw you're going to stick in place, and you need to be clear also about the client responsibilities. So it's their responsibility to make sure these updates are accurate and timely. That is completely their responsibility, and therefore any penalties are again their responsibility. They've got to make sure that they're giving you the records on time and they're accurate, and they're giving you all the information. I mean, they're never gonna tell you something you haven't asked for, I suppose. But also in terms of digital record keeping, to make sure that they're aware that that is the legal requirement. They have to keep these digital records. And then also, yes, how you're going to engage with other professionals, and really just to say, we will work with your, any other professional that you need us to. But again, that is your responsibility. They have to make sure that, that they approve any sort of data sharing between you. So that's kind of important.
And also for joint landlords, I think that's going to be something we need to think about. So, it's a bit, I know it's not going to affect everybody, but I've certainly got joint landlord clients, and you might not act for both of those clients. One of them might have a separate accountant, but again, is there going to be we need to perhaps think about how we word our letters of engagement around that. I mean, we probably do already, and I certainly do have a section in mine which says about third parties who are not engaged, covered by this letter of engagement, not being allowed to rely on any information or material that I'm providing. But again, it'd be good to have something like that sort of built into a proper MTD formatted template or section.
We're also
There's lots of things. The more you think about it, the more things you think of.
Yes. Well, we're also going to be giving some more guidance around the professional conduct in relation to tax. So the PCRT is this whole kind of conduct set of regulations for tax practitioners. But we adopted it in 2016 and said, this applies to our members. But, a lot of it is, it's all about tax advice and how to make sure your clients aren't avoiding tax or anything like that. But the professional bodies who sort of prepare that and work on PCRT, I think there's 7 of them, the likes of ACCA and ICAW, and they produced new guidance for making tax digital, which actually sort of talks about how you should use a PCRT compliant bookkeeper. So what we're doing is kind of working with them to say, well, our members are PCRT compliant, and then just giving a bit of guidance to bookkeepers to say this is what it actually means to be PCRT compliant. So there is some sort of compliance regulatory stuff that's coming out towards the end of the year. So hopefully that'll make that nice and clear. But nothing too onerous. But it's just, there's been so much change, hasn't there, for bookkeepers? The fact that you've got to you've got to be registered to be a tax agent, you've got to be registered to report to Companies House now, and all of that kind of rests on this. You're being supervised by ICB or a similar body, but it's it's a little bit scary. And I think what we're always trying to do is sort of say, there's nothing to be worried about. This is what you have to do. This is kind of covered. You're with ICB, so that's sort of it's covered. But it just all seems to me there's a lot that seems to be changing at the moment, and it's all about sort of the government getting its house in order and saying we actually think it's really important that tax agents are regulated, and we think it's really important that anyone signing up to submit to Companies House is really important.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
It's not because I don't think it's because there's an issue with agents. It's because there's an issue with these government departments who've found a lot of records and data and companies that they don't know enough about. But if bookkeepers can support, that's what they're there to do, and ICB obviously will support bookkeepers to do that.
just one final one from me is, you mentioned there about you've already mentioned that you've already got a good relationship with HMRC, which we love to see. And I think that's helpful, right? You've already mentioned about the agent, the additional supporting agent role and everything else that's come from it. But were you, are you still shocked by certain bits of it? Because you touched on it there about this whole, the non-signing. And I'll always remember I was at the ICAW MTD event that they put on, and HMRC was on stage and they were like, yeah, we don't need you to sign anything, you can just submit without your client signing. And I remember like looking over to the ICAW people going, is that the case? Because they weren't aware of that. So are you still finding these kind of little bits here that you're still kind of not 100% sure of, and you just kind of think, or do you feel like you're away from that now, and like most of what's coming now is going to be stuff you can manage, and there's going to be none of these curveballs thrown at you? How are you feeling with it?
Well, it was not long ago that I think it was earlier this year, so it must have been maybe 6 months ago, and they had this idea that nobody would even touch something to do the quarterly submission. It would just be taken automatically. And I think everybody in the room kind of went, oh God, no. Ultimately, can you do tax in real time? You can't, can you?
Yeah.
You're always going to have this annual process where you sort everything out, because that's the way the accounting rules work. You're going to have to do your accounting adjustments and your tax adjustments at the end of the year. So I think that's sort of been this message that HMRC needed to hear, because you don't get that message from the software companies. I don't think the software companies are like, it's really easy, all the data is already there. So that's just a message that has to keep being repeated, I think, of, actually, when you're at the grassroots level, businesses have got a very complicated bunch of things that they have to do to comply. And you are going to always have to have agents there supporting them. And, that's the message I'd really love software and HMRC and Companies House to really shout, and they never will they? Use an agent. Give yourself a break, do yourself a favor, and get a professional ICB bookkeeper or an agent who knows what they're doing, because it's just not worth the headache. But who knows? Maybe that will change. If I can bend Craig Ogilvy's ear a bit more, who knows? Maybe he will.
We'll see. Let's hope there's no more curveballs coming our way, but we'll see. Yeah. We'll see how it comes along. But thank you so much for giving us your time and talking to us and enlightening us on the world of MTD. A quick teaser on next episode before we do our wrap up is Sam Mitchum's joining us to talk all things Sage. So we're going to be battling it out and see, is Sage right for you or not? The idea is that she's going to come along and sell it to us basically, and change our mind on what our perfect solution is already going to be. Amy, before we go, anything you'd like to plug? Obviously the ICB events and everything else, but anything else you'd like to plug?
No, just plugging bookkeepers. This is a huge opportunity for you. We're finally getting recognition for how important your work is, and these are so rare, these bears now.
I've got one
created. Oh, look at that! I say rare. I don't have one. Do I? What have I got? I've got stickers.
Have you not got one?
Stickers. I know June's got 5. I think we've had several iterations. But yes, you might be able to bag yourself an ICB bear if you come to one of our events. The Bookkeeper Summit is super special. It's in person at the Queen Elizabeth II Conference Centre, which is just off Parliament Square. We had loads of events there in the past, and now we're back, which is kind of exciting. It's very professional, but it does have natural daylight. I know that's something that's really important. But we're back there on the 17th of November. We're virtual for the rest of that week. And that week is Global Bookkeeping Week, a very special week. It happens all over the world, and it's the moment for bookkeepers, their clients, the businesses they support, the general public to recognize the impact of bookkeepers, because it is just getting more and more important. So very exciting, something to look forward to this fall.
Loving that. Suzannah, anything you need to plug? Anything else you want to talk about?
Not really. I've been just reiterating what Amy has said. Really, I was thinking of this as a kind of a bookkeeping episode, and just just for the bookkeepers out there, make sure that you're thinking about offering to do the MTD quarterly returns, even if you're not qualified for self-assessment and you're not doing the end return. Do think about doing it. It is such a good opportunity for bookkeepers and to raise the profile of what we do in general. So yeah, that's all I was going to say.
Yeah.
Love that. I mean, I've had my eyes open because it's all doom and gloom from a lot of the professional bodies out there of all the extra work involved and everything else that comes with it. But actually, as long as you find yourself a nice little ICB member, I think you're going to be absolutely fine. So thank you so much, Amy, for bringing such positivity to it. And basically, it's been very similar to how Tim came along and told us why we're worried about this. You know, there's already professionals out there that can definitely help us go along. So thank you so much. Thanks for bringing such positivity, some energy to it. And thank you to everyone who was talking along in the background. Tim said some great new ones coming up soon too. So it's a bit of a teaser there for some great software we should be keeping an eye on, which is another reason why they should keep an eye out for the ICB summit, isn't it? To what software that could be. Mahu says, great point, Suzannah, when you were making your points before. So yeah, putting that forward. And thank you very much for all three. Great as always. No, thank you, Mahu, for coming along and giving us your time on here. So that is it. That is our MTD Watch Series by the wonderful Amy. Thank you so much for guest appearing on. Any final words you want to give out before we press the end stream button? Any rally call?
Just go out and get those clients and keep doing what you're doing and make sure accountants are valuing you, because you're going to be transformational for their businesses too. So good luck and enjoy it.
Perfection. We can't really say anything more than that. So thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye.